Oh, mama. That's my thing now. That's my thing. I'm going to do that every week.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That'll keep them coming back.
Yeah, I'm sure that you're really excited to hear all the different ways I can shout "Ho, mama" every week.
Did you even do it on the last one?
Yeah, do you not remember?
No, definitely not. It'll stick eventually.
Welcome to Button Chops, the podcast where two miserable millennials from Northern England ask, what's the crack with video games? I'm Chris.
And I'm Matthew.
And how are you doing this week?
I'm all right, yeah. How are you?
Terrible. I'm terrible every week.
Yeah,
no, I'm okay. I'm surviving.
We're a good couple of hours late to the podcast because you just complained about your many life issues and the world coming for you.
It's not
day by
easy
day.
working doing the pit every week and subsisting only on sausage and bean melts.
No, definitely not. You'll get there.
We're hitting our stride though. This is our fourth episode.
Is it fourth?
Yeah, I think this is a fourth episode.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
We're
it is.
Full-time podcasters now.
Definitely professional podcasters.
Making all of that sweet, sweet podcast money.
With a lot to say. I think half of our listenership has probably died of old age after listening to the Games of the Generation podcast.
Yeah, if they got all the way through it.
In 2 hours. What was it in the end? 1 hour and 50?
It was quite long. That's what I'm going to say. That's what...
We had a lot to say. We had a lot of passion to get off our chest.
Yeah, and it really comes through in the audio. You can really feel our love for our Games of the Generation.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So this week we're going to be talking about Star Wars games and the Lucasfilm Games announcement, which probably end up going off on a bunch of tangents about Star Wars in general.
Yeah.
I actually I don't really feel like we ever talk about Star Wars. Like we were talking about doing this episode, and I was like, does Matthew like Star Wars? Like, I don't actually know how you feel about Star Wars. Have we ever talked about Star Wars?
I think we talked about like the last couple of films. Especially the last one, because I remember talking to you about it on Christmas Eve, because I went to watch it on Christmas Eve. And I agreed with you. It's a
dog
massive
shit
mess. Right?
It's a dog shit. It's a fucking dumpster fire.
I was like, this music's good, but then I remember that the music's existed for like 30 years. It doesn't deserve credit.
It's in all the Star Wars films.
It doesn't deserve the credit for like re-rolling the same melodies at in the 80s.
So like... Are you a big Star Wars fan, or are you like more of like a casual sort? Or you just like it? Or?
I'd say big too casual. I'm a big old casual. I don't get hardcore like into a lot of the back lore. Like one of my friends, like he reads all the comics, like all the cartoons. He's like he knows everything about Star Wars. But so sometimes he makes me feel like even less of a casual.
Yeah.
But I really love like the mainline entries and like a lot of the games as well. But I feel like the last few films like jaded it for me. It was the same as what The Hobbit did with Lord of the Rings, where I loved Lord of the Rings so much and I wanted to know everything about it. And then when the Hobbit films came, it sort of just like exhausted me. Yeah. And that to me is what Star Wars has done over the last few years. So I've kind of like taken a bit of space from it.
Yeah, I mean, like Star Wars has always been like this fucking omnipresent thing in like in popular culture. But up until when Disney acquired it, it was kind of like the comics and the books and the games were always there if you wanted to seek them out. But the films, there was like the 6 movies, half of them were good by technical standards. And so it still felt like something of like a prestige brand. Like it wasn't totally oversaturated. And then obviously Disney buying it from Lucasfilm and just churning out Star Wars films and whatever, I think has maybe made Star Wars feel less like the sort of prestige bit of pop culture that it used to be. Even though like the prequel films were not good really by any metric. You know, like most of Star Wars, just in terms of the mainline movies, is not really great. The prequel films came out when we were kids, and so I have like a real nostalgic attachment to them, because at the time I couldn't tell that they weren't good. And now when I watch them, I'm like laughing at the terrible dialogue and the fact that all of the environments are like weird CGI green screen messes, but I still love them.
CGI's got so bad.
It just does not hold up at all. But even that, like, I will like sit and watch The Phantom Menace and laugh all the way through it.
Yeah.
But I still kind of love it, and I can't really explain why.
Yeah.
I don't actually dislike the Disney Star Wars films, I should say. I don't like The Rise of Skywalker because I think it's bad. But for the most part, they're just kind of at best average, you know?
Popcorn fillers. It's just like...
What do you think of The Last Jedi? I think this is going to be a point where we get onto The Last Jedi that either some people are going to just completely turn off if they hear an answer they don't like.
I really liked The Last Jedi because I felt like visually it tried to do things different enough, but while still staying in the Star Wars world. And actually, I didn't feel like it... At that point, it didn't feel like too much of a deviation from The Force Awakens. Like, it didn't feel too jarring yet as like a consecutive
you
story.
don't think?
No, it was, I didn't personally get it like that. I didn't. Maybe I wasn't looking into it enough. But I was just really into like the planet stuff. What was the planet called? Where it was like just white snow with the red stuff underneath.
Crate.
Is that what it's called?
Crate. Yeah. The end of Last Jedi.
Crate.
Crate.
Yeah, that was amazing visually, and the fight with between Kylo and Luke.
I love The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
I think it's the best Disney Star Wars film, and like for some reason that's like a really controversial thing to some Star Wars fans. It's like people either really like it or they despise it, and I don't understand why anybody would despise it. I think it's a very flawed film, but of the three main, like the Skywalker saga in inverted commas, it's the most ambitious and sort of feels like actual kind of thought and effort went into trying to make it stand apart from the original trilogy in some kind of way, instead of just trying to emulate the plot of the originals.
Yeah, I like the structure of like the chase at its core. I felt like that was a really good. It's quite a common-ish plot device across cinema. But I quite liked it for Star Wars because it's something that hadn't been done before. So it was like a Star Wars film, a mainline Star Wars film set in the context of a story structure that's already been done in other genres, to typically more like action-based, and brought forward into a Star Wars mainline thing. So I quite like that.
I think for some people it either works or it doesn't. Like when I think of The Last Jedi, I never really think about the fact that the film is essentially a really slow chase, whereas like some people hate it for that reason, and others, you know, people say that they don't like the humor in it, or they don't like the way that Luke was treated. And I guess like they're all valid criticisms, like if that's how you feel. But for me, the things that define that film aren't the things like the slow chase or like the couple of like jokes that don't really feel like Star Warsy humor. Like for me, it's like the throne room scene and like the Holdo maneuver where Laura Dern drives the ship through the First Order
amazing,
fleet. Yeah,
it went to like, it's the first time in Star Wars that space has sounded like space. Like it was just dead silent. Whereas usually like you can hear like the ships and stuff firing cannons, but that wouldn't actually happen. You know?
Yeah. I think like that is what one of the, I think if I could try and articulate why I like The Last Jedi is because the entire sequel trilogy doesn't really work as a trilogy at all. Like each film just feels like it just does its own thing. It doesn't tell a coherent story. So I just think of The Last Jedi as like an auteur director's take on Star Wars, which is what Rian Johnson is. Like he's a writer-director who just does his own thing. And not all of the choices really work in the context of, does this trilogy tell a coherent story that sort of gels with the originals or anything? But as a standalone film, it's like full of beautiful cinematography, some really like great writing, and some really there's some really like bleh bits in the film that I don't like, but the bits that I really like just totally cancel out those moments that I'm not into.
Yeah.
And then like the visual, like you said, like the striking visual moments, like I get goosebumps when I see Luke come out of the base at Crate at the end, and the entire First Order's all lined up there with like the AT-ATs just aiming cannons at him. I'm like, oh yeah,
that's a proper Star Wars moment. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, we were going to end up going off on tangents. There was a little mini review of The Last Jedi. On the whole, like the Disney Star Wars era has been a bit hit and miss overall, especially I think with the games, which is what we're kind of more going to be talking about today.
Yeah.
What Star Wars games did you play like growing up? Like what are your favorite Star Wars games?
I had only like the Battlefront games, obviously, but I also remember very vividly playing Jedi Starfighter. Did you ever play that?
Yeah, that's on my list of games that I had.
It was so good, that game. And also The Force Awakens, which is like a bit later. But more
The Force Unleashed.
Oh yeah, Force Unleashed, Force Awakens.
Yeah. I always get them mixed up as well. I never actually played that one.
I've actually written The Force Awakens. Got it wrong on that wasn't just a verbal typo. Yeah. So wrong. That game was really good. I loved it when it came out. They were both really short, but like really good, fun like action games. But with a really good story that's bold. I don't think it's registered like proper Star Wars canon. But Starkiller's a really good character.
It's like an alternate take, isn't it? Because in one of them, don't you kill Darth Vader? No, that's the whole framing of it, isn't it?
I don't think you kill Vader at the end of the second one. I completed it a few times.
I don't know because I haven't played them, so I might just be making that
There's
up.
2 endings to the second one, actually, so maybe. But yeah, they were really good. And I thought the story was cool. I thought like the whole element of like running around this overpowered Jedi apprentice. But like you were doing stuff like... pulling starships out of the sky and stuff and crashing them into planets and things like that. And it just like, it did, if it was ever registered canon, it would break the Star Wars universe because no one else was ever able to do that kind of stuff. And then he's just there like pulling them straight down. It was cool, but it was a very like throwaway game. It's very consistent. It's sort of, I was really excited about Jedi Fallen Order because I thought it looked like it might deviate into that, although the character was a bit softer than Starkiller. Starkiller had a bit more of edge about him. But Force Unleashed was a really good game.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that came out around the era where I wasn't playing a lot of games. Like there was like a kind of like a couple of years where I just kind of stopped playing games altogether. And like B, I think I'd kind of gone off Star Wars a bit. Like after the end of Revenge of the Sith and like the kind of all that, the prequels and stuff, I just kind of lost interest in Star Wars for a while. And it kind of resulted in me like not playing any Star Wars games or anything like that. But I was trying to think like, am I excited about Lucasfilm Games? Are we going to get more good Star Wars games? And trying to think in the context of like playing Star Wars games growing up. And on initially thinking about it, I was like, I don't think I played many Star Wars games growing up until I Googled Star Wars games. Went, oh wait, no, I had that one. And yet none of them really stand out as great games in my mind. So I mean, I played Starfighter and Jedi Starfighter. I played Bounty Hunter on PS2, the one where you play as Jango Fett.
I played that as well, actually. I forgot about that.
Yeah. I had Jedi Power Battles for the PlayStation 1. Have you seen that? So bad. Such a bad
Jedi Power Battles.
Jedi Power Battles. It was like the Phantom Menace. I think because when the Phantom Menace came out, there was a Phantom Menace PS1 game, like an adaptation, and there was also Jedi Power Battles. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that that's what it was because I'm pretty sure I had both of them. And Jedi Power Battles was like, it was like a 2-player game where you would play as like Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, or you could play as like other Jedi from like the Jedi Council, like Plo Koon, Kaede Mundi. I'll think of some more. Yaddle. Have you seen Yaddle?
Are you making this up at this point?
No. Yaddle's a female Yoda. I don't think you could play as Yaddle in Jedi Power Battles. You can play as Mace Windu. There's another one, but I can't remember. And it was like you would play through scenarios, I guess, from the Phantom Menace, the movie, as like 2-player Jedi sort of just like fighting through corridors full of droids and stuff. Not good. I don't remember it being good at all. Yeah, I think I had the Revenge of the Sith game. I had Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. Do you remember that? No. No, I had that for the Dreamcast.
Oh, no, that was... Yeah, of course, that was the Episode 1 racing, the pod racing.
It was a pod racing game?
Yeah, I did have that. That was ages ago, that Dreamcast.
Yeah. Yeah, Dreamcast. See what I mean? Like, when you think about Star Wars games, there was so many Star Wars games, and now there's like basically fuck all.
Yeah.
Which I guess is why Lucasfilm Games has been set up, because they had that EA exclusivity agreement, and they were saying that they were going to come out with all of these games, and ended up just kind of like not making any. Yeah. I had Rogue Leader on the GameCube as well. I just looked at my list there. Did you ever play that one? That was good. Like, that was like a Starfighter type game, but it was set in the original trilogy era. You were playing like an X-Wing.
Yeah.
And like it was pretty rare around that time for you to get like games and stuff set in the original era, because it was around the time the prequels were all coming out. So
and they were
everything was
targeting
set in
kids
the prequel era.
because they were like video games for kids. Like, let's get the kids.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then of course the Battlefront games. I mean, everybody used to play those. Like the original ones. Like, I used to play them at my mate's house all the time.
Yeah.
It was like really good multiplayer game.
It was such a proper like controller swappy game. Like, I used to have like a couple of mates come over and we'd like swap over and like winner stays on. But it was always weird when you looked back, because the thing about Battlefront is it was sort of like, you always imagined it being these massive like epic wars, but if you actually like think back properly or look at some pictures and stuff, it was always just like two characters in a massive map, because the games were like sort of designed for epic like large scale warfare, which they do now, but back on those generations, like, we didn't have the facilities to be able to like properly play them like that. Like, you couldn't do online. Half the time you could only play like maximum of like 4 controllers with like a multi-tab. So you couldn't really have that experience that you have nowadays. But when you were a kid, you had the imagination to just be like, it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they were like running around picking power-ups up. It was all like very retro. I thought it was class, the Battlefront games. But
I'm not much of an online game player anyway. So my nostalgia for playing like the Battlefront games is that I preferred sitting in the living room with like a tiny split screen with like 4 other people playing, you know, the 4 of us against like the game's AI or whatever. Like, I much more enjoyed that than the kind of current climate of playing everything online at home. You're playing online with other people, but you're sitting by yourself in a room, you know? And so did you play the EA Battlefront games, like the new ones?
Yeah, I got them both. Yeah.
Because I only played the betas for both of them.
Really?
And well, the first one was like online only, wasn't it?
Yeah, so you were like, stuff
and then the second one had like a shoehorned sort of 5-hour campaign or something in it. But I got the beta for both of them, but especially I remember playing the first one, playing online and just being like, I'm not enjoying this. Like, I'm just getting killed by everybody because I'm not good at playing online games. And like, I've lost that sort of fun that you had from sitting in a room with friends playing multiplayer, you know?
Yeah. But maybe it's because you don't play with people online.
I don't have any friends.
I enjoyed the new ones, but I always enjoyed them more when I was playing with people. And you got that same feeling, like headset on, 3 mates in like a squad. It was enough because you always knew where they were. You had to spawn on them. You sort of tell each other like where the AT-ATs are and stuff like that. That always felt like enough, but then it was on top of that, there was like another 100 players in the map that could.
Yeah, but what about like being at your friend's house and then your friend's mum has like ordered pizzas for you, and she brings in the pizzas and she's like, "Here you go, lads. Here's your pizzas."
You've got to let go.
Are you winning, son?
You've got to let go. That's not going to happen anymore, is it?
I'm not going to let go.
I used to go around my mates and play it just because his mum used to buy his McDonald's, and my nana would never ever buy McDonald's. So I was like, can we go around yours and play on Battlefront? And he'd be like, oh, do we have to? Like, can we not go at yours? And I'd be like, nah, we're going to yours. And then I'd be like,
because I want a Big Mac.
And then we'd go around and his mum would be like, are you hungry? And I'd be like, oh, starving. And then I'd get home and have like a cheese and onion pasty or something like that from my nana. I really like the new ones. I've like, even now I have like fond memories of like 5 years ago. sitting and playing on like Tatooine with Luke and stuff like that, and unlocking him, and then just going to town on like 20 actual real players, and knowing how annoying it is when like a Jedi sprints at you, being that Jedi and just being like, phew, and knowing that I was like negatively impacting a real person's day on the other side.
It's kind of sadistic.
I was like, just sprinting at them, being like, wow, and then they'd start shooting me. I'd bend over around the back of like some wreckage, jump over the top, and do them from there. It's class.
I don't know. I mean, I remember like playing the beta and being like, oh, the graphics are incredible, but it just felt like something was missing. I think it doesn't really help that I'm much more of I like a good single player campaign. And I was excited about Battlefront 2 when they announced it would have a campaign, but then all of the controversy over the loot boxes and the microtransactions and stuff, all of that came out, and it just deterred me, and I ended up not getting it. Did you play the campaign for that?
I started it. I didn't get that game until about 6 months after it came out because of the loot box thing. Because it was basically just pay to play at the start. Plus, obviously, like buying the game just entertains the idea that that's an okay thing to do, which it isn't.
I think like they worked out online. So just to kind of explain the whole, I'm sure most people know about it, but obviously there was like the microtransactions element where you could like buy upgrades with real money, but there was also like a loot box system where you could buy basically a box of upgrades, and you didn't. Is that right? You didn't know what you would get in it until you'd already bought it, and it was really controversial, and it ended up like there was loads of litigation in countries around the world trying to work out whether it constituted gambling or not. Yeah. And it's still like ongoing now, the debate around it.
Yeah, the system of progression, like generally in multiplayer games, it's like if you stick to a certain play style, you want to use an assault rifle, you want to use a sniper rifle. If you stick to that and play it more and earn experience points, and if you do better in a game, if you're the top on the entire team, or you get 80 kills and only one death, you're rewarded more points, so you unlock more abilities and more weapons for your set play style. That's generally the core structure of most multiplayer games. But Star Wars Battlefront 2 was like, I think it was probably the first multiplayer game to proper go to town on loot boxes, in the sense that they actually tied everyone's progression to loot boxes. So, for example, if you played as a sniper and then you came out of a game, you got like a set amount of experience points, and the difference between if you came first or last, so if you got 100 kills or 0, was very negligible, to the point where some people were reporting that they got the bottom and got more experience points than the people at the top. So skill wasn't being rewarded, but every single time you leveled up, you unlocked like loot box tokens basically, and then you just open them and see what random stuff you get. So you get like a couple of taunts, which are always pointless, like making your character like do a thumbs up, and then if you're lucky, you might get a weapon, but you might get a weapon that's like you don't want to use because you don't like playing with a shotgun or things like that. So you were never really given like a progression system, and to get, say for example, to get the best sniper, all you had to do is just keep playing constantly until one day you were lucky enough to open a pack and have that sniper rifle. But why they pitched it like that is because they knew that people wanted better guns. So if you paid for it, you would increase your chances of getting the stuff quicker. So people with more money or just more disposable income were actually just paying for more boxes, and then they were getting the better stuff. They were getting access to like the better Jedis. They were getting cooler outfits for the Jedi stuff and things like that. So people were running around like with Luke Skywalker, and it felt unfair on people who didn't want to put money into it, but were never able to get him because their luck just wasn't going that way, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, I think I read online that players worked out it would take 80 hours to grind out the unlockables that were available to buy straight off the top, which is just like daft. So if someone just goes on and just buys everything straight away, then it's just breaking the game for other people. I
swear it was more than 80 hours. Because some of those games, like other similar, mainly the free games, so the free games that you'd actually pay for, but also that like For Honor game and stuff like that. Some of those take like 2,000 hours if you don't put any money into it to like unlock everything.
2,000 hours. That's how many hours I played all together in games last year.
Oh yeah, it was actually, wasn't it?
That's fucking disgusting.
But they fixed all of that. So a few months later, after substantial like commercial pressure, and stocks flying out the window and losing money, they decided to fix it. It's quite a similar situation to Cyberpunk. It's probably the last big controversy since Cyberpunk, I think.
Yeah, I remember it was big and it went on for a long time. I mean, obviously we're talking about it now. It's essentially the backdrop for the news that EA aren't going to be the only company making Star Wars games now. Did I even explain that up top? No. I mean, I'm sure everybody knows, but so yeah, just to set the scene a bit, like Disney announced the creation of Lucasfilm Games, which is an umbrella company which will oversee all new Star Wars properties. And like amongst that, the first announcements that they made was that Bethesda would be making an Indiana Jones game, and Ubisoft, well, Massive Studios, are they called Massive Studios? Who make the Division 2, owned by Ubisoft, will be making an open world Star Wars game, basically saying EA aren't going to have the exclusive rights to Star Wars anymore. And I think when it was announced that EA were getting the exclusive rights to Star Wars, first of all, it made me want to chisel my eyes out because I don't think of EA as a particularly good publisher / developer. But also, they kind of hinted or made announcements that they were going to make all of these Star Wars games. And in the period that they've had the exclusive rights, it feels like there hasn't really been much. There was the 2 Battlefront games. There was like some Lego Star Wars games. There was
about 9, weren't they?
Fuck knows.
They proper overdo those games.
I don't think I've ever played any of the Lego anything games. Yeah, and then they had Star Wars Squadrons, which I've heard is pretty good, or especially good if you play in VR. But I mean, who plays in VR?
4 people in the world.
Yeah, like 4 people who could afford VR headsets that are worth buying. And then did I say Fallen Order? Yeah, they made Fallen Order, which you haven't played.
I haven't played it now. I avoided it.
It was pretty good. Not like earth-shattering. If you could get it sort of second-hand at a cheaper price, I'd recommend it. I enjoyed the story, especially about it, which I found quite surprising. It is a good single-player campaign. It has moments. What I felt playing it was that it had moments where I felt like I was playing something else that had been skinned as a Star Wars game.
Yeah.
You know? It has Star Wars aesthetics and elements, but then sometimes you'll be fighting an enemy like some alien on a planet. And clearly you can see that it was developed by Respawn Games, who made Titanfall 2. Titanfall 2, which is a really good game. I actually really, really like Titanfall 2 and Titanfall. But you can see the moments where they've kind of gone to town and had a bit of fun sort of designing things within the Star Wars universe for themselves. But the things that they've sort of introduced, like some of the aliens that you fight in it, don't feel very Star Warsy. Like you'll fight some giant spider or something and it feels more like something out of like Harry Potter than than Star Wars. But on the whole, I thought it was a pretty good game.
Yeah.
I think they'll definitely up the ante a bit for the second one. You know, because I mean, like going from something like Titanfall to this, to Fallen Order feels like a bit of a big jump. And I think now that they've sort of dipped their toe in and got some experience making that style of sort of like third-person action adventure game, I think they can probably sort of experiment a bit more and expand on the mechanics that they sort of introduced in Fallen Order.
Yeah, I think I would like to see Star Wars like concentrate a bit more in terms of like games. Like the films are all over, but like at least they're films. You know, sort of what you get with a Star Wars film. I'd quite like to see Star Wars like have like a proper set like type of Star Wars game that's like a mainline game. I know they've got Battlefront, but it's not worked, has it? Like I know I'm saying I like it, but
yeah,
I'd like to see them have like an industry breaking like mainline game that brings enough new ideas but does them like exceptionally well, and then sticks to that story so you can actually follow a game and be excited for when that next game comes out. So the thing with the Star Wars games is there's so many different ones that you never really know what the next Star Wars game is going to be like. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I see what you're saying. I think with this news, I don't see that happening, to be honest.
No, definitely not.
Because if anything, it's widening the scope for what Star Wars games will be quite broadly, because it's opening up, any studio anywhere who has an idea or a good, sort of concept for a Star Wars game that'll get greenlit by Lucasfilm Games, and they can make tons of different styles of games. And personally, I can't, as much as I think that it would be good to have that style of game, like something that is distinctly Star Wars that isn't like anything else. I don't think, because Star Wars at root is it's just an intellectual property. It's a branding that you slap on a product now, especially with Disney owning it. You aren't going to get sort of like groundbreaking, revolutionary games. You're going to get, whatever a developer knows how to make with a Star Wars skin on, which I think Star Wars games are kind of destined to be that anyway.
I know what you mean, like across the board of video game output from Star Wars, but I think that if it had one game that came out and it was seen as, a game of the generation sort of standard, they'd stick to it, if they have a character that they could expand the universe in, just like what they've did with Jedi Fallen Order, but maybe a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, if anything is going to be that, I think it probably would be Jedi Fallen Order, because while it is an amalgamation of other types of games, it's quite a unique brew of different games, like who would have ever thought to put Dark Souls and Uncharted together, It does both of those things, and it does them both relatively well. I think Fallen Order was a foray into that style of game, and I think they can sort of develop it and put their own stamp on it with the sequel, whilst continuing what is actually an interesting story. The one thing I really appreciated about Fallen Order is, spoilers, but it obviously has Darth Vader and stuff in it, but it's not a Star Wars game that is set after, it's set after Revenge of the Sith, I think it's around that period, maybe just before New Hope. And it has no reliance on, look, it's Luke Skywalker, look, it's Han Solo, like the films have been, and even like The Mandalorian Season 2, just dropping in these characters that we've seen and love from other things. It doesn't do that. It's telling its own story that's going off in its own direction. And so far, there hasn't been an over-reliance on fan service. And so I think that is the correct template for Star Wars games going forward, is avoid the fan service, tell interesting stories that do their own thing. I think expecting really, the sort of groundbreaking mechanics from a Star Wars game might be asking a little bit too much. Maybe I just think too small. I don't know. But I mean, I know what you mean, and maybe that's just where we're at with the video games industry nowadays, but I don't think it's unfair to expect groundbreaking games every now and again at some point over the next 5 to 10 years from video game developers, which will have enough money to be able, and clout to be able to license a Star Wars game from LucasArts. So I don't know, they had ideas in the past, did you ever hear about that Star Wars 1313? Yeah. That was, it seems like they've always touched into this Uncharted thing, because they had that, which was meant to be an Uncharted Star Wars game, and it got binned when Disney bought Star Wars, because they said that it didn't have enough multiplayer functionality, and then obviously launched Battlefront and things. But then they tried to do it again, and they launched another game which has got a few seconds of online footage, called Project Ragtag, and they hired the Uncharted creator to do it. All right.
And it was basically a follow-on from the 1313 project, and then EA also canned that because it not only because it didn't have any multiplayer functionality, it just didn't. The creator said she didn't want to do multiplayer at all. So they were just no, we're not doing this.
Well, that was kind of the expectation when EA got the exclusivity agreement, wasn't it? Is that EA are just going to do a ton of like live game looter type things where they can bilk fans through microtransactions. So I think like the news that the sort of the scope is being broadened is a good thing, because it means that we're going to get lots of different types of Star Wars games at the very least.
I guess,
but it seems like EA already had learned their lesson with that, with Fallen Order and Squadrons.
Yeah,
you know,
maybe a bit too late though.
Yeah, too little, too late. Yeah, definitely.
But maybe you're right. Like my hope of having like one Star Wars game at some point that just stands above the rest and is seen as one of the best games in current creation can also be aligned with like a development, a business idea that takes on multiple ideas, because it seems like the problem for Star Wars games for the last 10, 15 years has been that they've rejected everything that they didn't want to put out. So it's like, well, this doesn't have a set understanding of what will make a successful game or will make us the most money. And if they actually change their philosophy and accept like creative ideas, whether they work or not, to operate under the Star Wars license, we might get like some point that just clicks.
Yeah, and I think that's generally been my problem with Star Wars in the Disney era at large, is that it's an unwillingness to be more creatively bold.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, I enjoyed... did you watch The Mandalorian Season 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, like, I enjoyed it. I thought it was good, but, you know, there was still way too much fan service, way too much, reliance on tropes that are just, to me, have just been done to death now and aren't interesting to me anymore.
Yeah.
And I want to see new and interesting things set within the Star Wars universe, but at the minute, it feels like Star Wars is used as just branding rather than, you know, like a compelling universe in which interesting stories are being told. And this news, whilst I think it's a step in the right direction, and like, you know, maybe we will get a studio pick up, get a Star Wars project greenlit that's really like bold and inventive and a new direction for Star Wars games. But I mean, the straight, like the announcement that Ubisoft were making an open world Star Wars game straight away just made me go, ugh. Yeah, because it's just going to be an Assassin's Creed style giant open world littered with like pointless map markers, you know, boring side quests, just fucking dirge, time-killing dirge. Like, that's straight away, that was my pessimistic response to that news.
Did you know that Massive and Ubisoft made Far Cry 3?
I've not played a single Far Cry game.
And that's like one of the epitomes of that game what you just described. And I actually really, really, really liked Far Cry 3 when it came out. It came out in like 2011. I think that was when open world games were a bit more like exciting. I remember being like, whoa, there's sharks in it. Like you can go in the water and get eaten and stuff, fight sharks. But it doesn't really fly anymore, does it?
No.
Whereas
it's
now...
it's gotten really tired, you know? Like, I don't... Especially when you've like we're fucking approaching old age now. Like, you know, like we don't have time to be spending like 100 hours trotting across a giant open world. You know, not that I'm inherently opposed to open worlds in general. It's just the way that open world games have become, partially as a result of the type of like template that's been set down by like publishers like Ubisoft, like just filling huge endless games with just like boring crap.
Yeah, the mechanics are just so boring. It's like, oh, but did you know you'll find these and there's plenty of those to find in the map. And I remember that's the reason I didn't play Ghost of Tsushima. And I remember you were the same at the time. You were like, oh, because we were both like, that looks good. And then they had that reveal trailer at maybe an E3. And we were like, oh, bloody hell.
The minute I found out it was an open world game, I just instantly didn't want to play it anymore.
Yeah.
And it was really good, to be fair. It was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. But I went in with the mindset of I'm not going to do all of the pointless side crap, because a lot of the side quests in the game aren't very interesting, you know? And I mean, I've been told that Assassin's Creed Valhalla is good, but I still probably won't play it because... it's like apparently takes like 100 hours just to finish the main quest. Something ridiculous. Like it's just way too long and gets boring after a while. You can ruin a game that's got really good mechanics by just stretching the length out too long, because eventually you get sick of it.
Yeah, definitely. They all get boring eventually.
Yeah, a mechanic can even a really fun game mechanic can only sort of carry itself so far.
But yeah, I think I'm exactly the same with you immediately on the news of Ubisoft, because I saw on my social media and stuff, people proper buzzing about it, being like, oh, it's going to be the return of some classic Star Wars games, we're going back to old school Battlefront, or we're going back to Knights of the Old Republic and all these kind of games. So I was just does that mean that it's Ubisoft?
Well, that said, so there is actually a Knights of the Old Republic game in development.
Yeah.
Have you heard about this? I don't think it's the Ubisoft one that's the Knights of the Old Republic. I haven't actually. Well, we were talking about this earlier, so I haven't actually. I had Knights of the Old Republic as a kid, and I remember nothing about it. But it is sort of regarded as one of the best Star Wars games ever made, and I think just going off what I do know about it, if I were to be excited for any kind of Star Wars game now, it would be that. Mainly just because it's set thousands of years outside of the Star Wars timeline that has been done to death now. And I'm more interested in sort of seeing a story told in that period, because you haven't seen a lot of that.
Yeah, it's mainly in the comics and the other kind of more lesser known material, I think. But apparently it's widely regarded within the proper Star Wars hardcore fan base. It's the most interesting time.
Yeah. So Disney, have you heard of Project Luminous?
No.
So Disney announced this thing called Project Luminous a couple of years ago. It might have been just after Rise of Skywalker came out. But it was supposed to be a new sort of it was a multimedia story direct thing that they were doing basically. And the first of it came out, and it was called it's a novel called The High Republic, which I guess is because when Disney bought Star Wars, all of the expanded universe stuff became no longer canon. So stuff like Knights of the Old Republic just isn't Star Wars canon anymore. I don't think it all became known as Star Wars Legends.
Right. Yeah.
So the High Republic, I think, is Disney doing their own version of the Old Republic.
Right.
So I think we're definitely going to see more of that. I think one of the announcements on the Disney slate for new Star Wars stuff, there was a thing called Star Wars Acolyte, which is either a Disney Plus series or a film. And that is apparently set in that era. And that's the kind of thing I want to see more of. I'm totally done with the fucking Empire and the Rebels and the Resistance and the First Order. I don't want it anymore. I want to see something completely new.
Yeah. They can't rely on nostalgia then either, can they? If they have to go back.
No. Well, that's the
thing. There isn't any centerpiece characters or anything like that to lean on.
Yeah, exactly. They need to kind of find an interesting story themselves and tell it without sort of milking fans' emotional attachment to classic Star Wars stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I think if Ubisoft were to... I keep saying Ubi... Do you say Ubisoft or Ubisoft? Ubisoft. I don't know why I feel like I've just been going Ubisoft for this. Ubisoft. Ubisoft. Boobisoft.
You men are all the same.
Men only want one thing.
It's disgusting.
I've totally forgot what I was talking about now. Star Wars. It's good, isn't it?
The Old Republic. The renewing of the Old Republic. I liked apparently the remaking. The only rumor I saw about the Old Republic was that they're remaking it or remastering it even. But apparently the graphics are so old that the faces and stuff are all just completely still.
Yeah.
But it's got really good gameplay mechanics where they're apparently it's like Dungeons and Dragons, you have to queue up your actions. So it's sort of semi-turn based, but in an open world. And it feels sort of quick enough that the visual side doesn't feel turn based per se. It's not like a proper hardcore RPG game. But the decision making and stuff like that's apparently really good, which is I think is a really important thing for a Star Wars game, because that's one of the key concepts of the mainline films and Star Wars as a theme. It's like, do you pull to the dark side, or do you resist and stay with the light side? And games they're always like quite transparent with it. Like Fallen Order, it's just like, here's a good guy, do you know what I mean? And I don't know because I haven't played it, but I could tell even from looking at him. I saw him in the trailer and I was like, he ain't going to the dark side. Even if they try and assume that he is tempted by it, he's a softie.
Yeah. I mean, that is something that's something that is kind of at the core of pretty much all Star Wars mainline stories. You know, I mean, it's personally as a kid, I never really felt when you watch Return of the Jedi that Luke is really ever seriously considering going to the dark side, but apparently like that is a thing that, you know, he rejects the dark side and brings Darth Vader back to the light at the end of Return of the Jedi. And then obviously the prequels are all about the fall of Anakin Skywalker, and then I don't know, there was something or other, and apparently Rey might go bad because you see her with a hood and a dual-ended lightsaber. Apparently that is classed as character development.
She was going to be bad in the trailer.
Yeah, that was fucking all that was. That was just like, ooh, you're excited now because look, she's got a Darth Maul lightsaber.
Yeah, and she's just a hallucination.
Yeah, and she hisses.
And everyone was like,
thing from The Hobbit, from Lord of the Rings, where Bilbo Baggins.
Yeah.
It's mine.
And she had about 79 more teeth, and they're all really sharp.
Yeah,
she just looked like a vampire.
But yeah, like Fallen Order does sort of do that. Like it does sort of tease around. Like, I don't know. I don't remember the story that well. Like I couldn't explain it to you, but there is like a sort of conceit of he's on the light side, and like someone that he used to know has become like a Sith Inquisitor, and you know, like there is she's trying to sort of bring him over to the dark side type thing. But yeah, you never really see that sort of done well, especially in a video game with that like bent of interactivity. Yeah. Like I would definitely like to play a game where I'm sort of given the choice instead of just being railroaded into being the good guy, which works. I mean, it works in Fallen Order because of the type of game it is. It's not an RPG, but I would be interested to see like a modern, really well done Star Wars RPG.
Yeah, definitely. Full of different dialogue
I just
choices.
Googled that there, by the way, because, you know, we're top tier games journalists on this show.
This is work.
And yeah, so there is a Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic game in the works at Aspia Media.
What, Knights of the Old Republic 3 or a remake?
It just says, oh wait, no, a remake of the legendary Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic game is in the works. Credible leaker and Bloomberg journalist Jason Schreier has teased some information about it. So, and that's basically all that they know about it.
Well, that's all right, especially if it's a proper remake. I'd be up for that.
Yeah. I mean, I'll take anything at this point.
I saw on the rumor mill, I was looking into like rumored Star Wars games, and I saw it was a very, very light rumor that Santa Monica Studios were doing a PS5 exclusive Star Wars game. Now that'd be good. God of War.
That sounds like bullshit, but also yes.
It sounds like just a dream. You know, when people just put a rumor in the middle and they're just like, "This is a really amazing thing that could happen," and everyone gets excited about it.
Yeah, that's like Facebook clickbait headline.
Yeah,
it's like someone's just made it up and put it on Facebook for clicks. But
that's the kind of.
I mean, that would be amazing. I personally, I don't see that happening just because. I think, if anything, they had full speed ahead on God of War forever now. But never know.
Never know. They might wrap it up with God of War 2, though, which I'd assume is close to finished.
See, I think... Yeah, I don't know. I was going to say, I don't... Because this the next God of War game is going to be cross-platform, so it's not really going to be a truly next-gen God of War. I feel like we're going to get this God of War 2 cross-platform PS4 and PS5, and then they're probably going to go to work on like a fully next-gen God of War, which will come out in like fucking 7 years or something stupid. But, you know, never say never, I guess.
Yeah, but I guess with like successful titles like those, they can at least deviate resources and hire in new teams, sub-teams, things like that. So they could do like a bit of a crossover period. But that, I mean, it is just a very light rumour, but that's the kind of development that I'd want from a game, where I was saying earlier, like not necessarily groundbreaking mechanics or ideas about Star Wars game, but a team that would like make sure that almost everything was done to complete perfection. Like just a really, really good game, well thought out, beautiful sound design, impressive world, like unique storytelling. And they are the sort of developer that would have the clout to do that, because they've done that with God of War. They've taken a game that was established in like Greek mythos and remade it essentially, and they've channeled it into something completely different.
I think what underpins my skepticism about a studio making a game like that's on the level of like a God of War set in the Star Wars universe is that I can't help but feel that a developer is wanting to get in on a Star Wars licensed game purely to have, you know, the Star Wars branding is going to sell well because it's a Star Wars game, whereas like something like God of War feels like a creative passion project. And I can't imagine the track record of Disney hiring fucking EA and Ubisoft and like studio, like these huge fucking publishers that make mostly average games, the occasional sort of banger. It feels like that it's going to be big publishers like that are going to get preference over like a studio that wants to make like a real passion project Star Wars game.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not explaining it very well, but I'm skeptical, you know, like I should be more excited about it because I want a really great Star Wars game, but I guess all we can do is wait and see. Yeah. You know, this massive entertainment one could be incredible. It could be everything we've always wanted from an open world Star Wars game.
Yeah, maybe.
But we're probably not going to see anything like that, anything from it for at least a couple of years. I would say like 2022, 2023.
Yeah.
Probably when we'll first see or hear something from it. So
yeah, it's weird because I think you look at the business like behavior of Disney and with the films, and you think about the companies that are now aligning themselves with like a Ubisoft, and you think about the way that they treat games as a business with microtransaction filled open world games. Exactly. It sounds like they've had a nice little chat and they've realised they'll get on, and they've got a Star Wars license they can sell.
Well, that's the whole idea behind the Lucasfilm Games being like an umbrella company that oversees the development of Star Wars games, because they're not making games themselves, where like Lucasfilm Games was actually what LucasArts was before it was LucasArts. It's existed since like the early 80s. It was Lucasfilm Games, and then it was rebranded to LucasArts, and they were making games themselves. And the reason now that they're not making the games themselves is because they don't want to take on the risk and liability that it takes, like the costs involved of making a game themselves.
Yeah.
And they're essentially having a hand in the development of these games, but they're allowing other companies to take on the sort of risks involved financially. Who are going to take on those sort of risks? It's going to be big publishers with the money and the clout to put resources into making a Star Wars game. You know, like smaller studios maybe aren't going to want to get, they're not going to be allowed to get in by Disney, and they're maybe not going to want to because of, you know, Lucasfilms themselves don't even want to fucking make their own games.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Did you see the stuff about Assassin's Creed Origins, where they tied a lot of progression to the story, where you couldn't get a main story quest to progress the story until you got to a certain level. But to do that, to get to that certain level, you have to go off and do like a ton of side quests or pay.
Oh my God. Really?
Yeah, they did do that. And it was like a 60-hour game or something. So that's the kind of people that will be in charge of these next Star Wars games that will be immediately upcoming. Everything else is sort of in the shadows now.
Massive Entertainment made The Division 2 and The Division, which I have not played, but people like those games, but they're like looter shooter type.
Yeah, they are. They're the same. They've got microtransactions in them as well.
Yeah, so I am, yeah. The more we talk about it, the less optimistic I am. I'm just getting depressed.
We've joined up all the dots and realised that this future Star Wars games is bleak.
Maybe. I don't want to be that pessimistic about it. I enjoyed Fallen Order, and EA are still making Star Wars games. So there's going to be a Fallen Order 2. Squadrons is apparently good. I'll get it at some point. I'm not going to pay full price for it. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But I mean, it's not just Star Wars games that Lucasfilm Games are overseeing, because there was the announcement of the Indiana Jones game at Bethesda. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
I wish I could play it, but it's an Xbox game, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it probably will be an Xbox exclusive. I don't think they've said that, but obviously Microsoft buying Bethesda means they're trying to kind of fight fire with fire, with Sony having so many good exclusives over the last generation and Xbox basically having none. So I think going forward, we're going to see all Bethesda stuff come out on Xbox and PC exclusively. So
yeah,
but
I think though an Indiana Jones game, it's like, you didn't play the Uncharted games like 1, 2, 3, did you? You just played 4.
I've played 4. Four's the only one I've completed, but I've played the other ones, but not finished any of them apart from 4, which I really liked.
Yeah, so to me, I loved those games, and like by 4, I was like, it was a nice end to like a game that stuck with me for like 8, 9 years. But then Tomb Raider came out, which was an IP that we're familiar with since PlayStation, and I was a bit like, are we doing this again? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm a bit worried that Xbox are desperately trying to use the Indiana Jones IP to get in on that world of Tomb Raider versus Uncharted, but it might be way too late to jump on that bandwagon. But then again, if you've only had an Xbox for the last few years, you might not have played that much of it. You might have played Tomb Raider.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is going to pretty closely hew to the template set down by Uncharted. It's Machine Games, I think, are making it, who made the Wolfenstein games. Did you play any of the modern Wolfenstein games?
No.
Wolfenstein, I haven't played the first one, but I played Wolfenstein 2, and it was really good. It's a really good game. So I actually think Wolfenstein is obviously totally different. Well, not really, because it's Nazis, isn't it? But it's kind of a different thing than what I would expect from an Indiana Jones game. But I think what the Wolfenstein games did really well is they absolutely nailed the tone of the game. Like, Wolfenstein is an inherently silly concept, but at the moments where it needed to play it serious, it absolutely does play it serious. And it kind of veers in between like just silly body horror and like serious drama. And I think Indiana Jones is something that they need to nail the tone with, because I don't think within Uncharted and Tomb Raider, like, they're video game characters and you don't really question the fact that you're like murdering hundreds of people as you kind of run through the game and still consider these people to be heroic. But Indiana Jones is like a movie character, and I don't think that sort of thing in Uncharted, where you run through a level and you kill like literally 100 people, is going to work as well with an established character like Indiana Jones. But I trust Machine Games because of Wolfenstein to kind of get that. You know, I think I'm quite optimistic about that. I think it's going to turn out well, even though I probably won't play it because I'm unlikely that I will have an Xbox by the time it comes out.
Yeah.
I guess with the announcement of that, I suppose I'm quite optimistic about that. So I think it exemplifies how this could potentially be good news for Star Wars if a developer like that kind of knows their way around it and knows what they're doing gets their hands on getting a project greenlit.
Yeah, sure. I don't know. I guess we'll soon find out.
And that's all I have to say on that.
Yeah, that's all I have to say on it. So
I'm
not getting an Xbox. So I'm not playing Indiana Jones.
I might. I've been thinking about getting an Xbox.
Yeah, of course you have. It's not enough consoles in the world for you.
I think the Game Pass is a pretty interesting concept. As things stand right now, I mean, PlayStation just has all of the IPs that I like, like the Spider-Man games and the God of War and, all of the PS exclusives. Like Horizon, I'm really looking forward to the next Horizon game. Like,
yeah.
PlayStation's got the best exclusives, but I don't know. I think Xbox have the capacity to sort of turn things around in the future, and I'm interested to see what Game Pass is like. So,
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
it's not for me. I'll stay on PlayStation, even though I've lost my baby, The Last of Us, really. But see if something else comes up. I'm sure they'll have a new IP over the course of this generation that'll be outstanding because they've done that over the last couple of generations.
Yeah, they keep doing it. I think Ghost of Tsushima is the Ghost of Tsushima is a really underrated PlayStation exclusive, and I think they've sort of found their footing with this one, with the first one. I think the second one is, provided they kind of, maybe take some more creative risks. There's definitely going to be a second one, and I think it'll be really good. I think we might see Ghost of Tsushima turn into like another one of the big sort of like powerhouse PlayStation IPs.
Yeah, potentially.
So, yeah, that was it. We cracked Star Wars. Nobody's ever going to talk about Star Wars again. We did it.
Completed overview of Star Wars.
I'm going to take out my little list of games topics and tick Star Wars off. Make sure. And then if we ever hear about anybody talking about it again, we'll find out where they are and we'll firebomb them. Be like, do you not know that we finished talking about this? It's done now. I wish you were dead. What else have you been playing? Have you been watching, doing anything? I've got this down as this week, Steve. I don't know if...
Oh, yeah. I didn't actually realise... Is it last time when you were like, oh no, you text me and you're like, I'm going to call that section Steve. And then I listened back to episode 2 and you were calling it Steve. And I was like, he's really trying to bring this one up.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting.
I'm going to keep hammering it. So on this week, Steve, what else have you been playing?
I've been playing a game called Frostpunk, actually, which is good.
I've never heard of it. I don't think there's gonna be a single week where I've heard of anything that you've been playing when you
Well, pretty alternative with my video.
Such a fucking edgelord.
But Frostpunk's like a city builder. So like one of those games that you just sort of like you build a city and manage the resources, and you got to get more of the resources, and it gets bigger and there's more needs, so you need to create more bits. But it's really like, it's probably the best one I've played in terms of them. I haven't played a lot of them, but I really like this. I find them so addictive. I just can't stop playing them, mainly because when you first start playing them, I find it hard to pause it halfway through and then finish again another day.
Yeah.
So I have to like finish one run in one sitting. I think it goes back to what I've said a few times now, where it's like, I don't know where I just was.
Yeah.
So I don't know what I was doing just before if I play it tonight. So I have to start again. So every night of the last 4 nights, I've played it as soon as I got home until I went to sleep. And everyone died every time. It's pretty great. It's like it's like set in like an ice age. And humanity's like found some generators in like the Antarctic. And you build a village around the generators, and then you sort of build outwards. But it's really like the tone of it's so dark. Like everyone's always like coming to you and being like, "Oh, my granddad's just been amputated or something."
He's been
like
amputated.
Yeah. What do you mean? He has.
What's he had amputated, or was he attached to something else and was amputated from it?
Well, you put him down the mines, and his leg. And because you've passed
I can
the law,
relate because I work doing the pit.
So there's like these decisions where it's like there's these decisions where you've got to decide whether you want to either look after people and keep them alive, but fill the medical tents up, which would cost more money and put workers out of action, or you can just amputate them. which means that they don't take up beds in the medical facility, so you can heal people quicker and get them back to work. So I just chose to do amputations. And then they were coming to me being like, my granddad's just died, like, cheers. And then the discontent rises. So there's like 2 bars, hope and discontent. You've got to get the hope as high as possible, and discontent needs to stay as low. But you have to make choices all the time, which like might dramatically extend the discontent. So I got banished at one point because the discontent went all the way up because they were freezing. And then the day after that, they all froze to death because I didn't have enough energy sources to provide heating for everyone.
It's a bit close to the bone in the middle of a global pandemic, isn't
I know, it was a bit dark, to be fair. I went to play it yesterday, and it was the first time this week where I went to play it, and I was like, am I really going to start this again? And like get to 1 o'clock in the morning and realise that everything I've worked towards for the last 5 hours has came to absolutely nothing. And it was the first night of the week where I went, nah, I'll go find something else to do. But it is really, really good, and I hadn't heard of it either. But I went and checked some reviews and stuff, and it got reviewed like really, really well. It got like 9s and 9.5s, stuff like that.
I'll check out some trailers. Yeah, I'll look at some trailers. I'll watch people speed run it.
The PC footage looks amazing. The graphics and stuff are proper beautiful. But the PS4 game is just looks a bit ugly.
Yeah, I found that with Ghost Runner.
Yeah, it's got old, hasn't it? That last gen PS4.
Yeah, I mean, like when you see people, I see people play. It's just a general thing, isn't it? PC's just better than consoles.
Yeah,
in terms of raw graphical power. But yeah, cool. Sounds good.
What have you been playing?
What have I been playing? Well, we didn't do it last week, did we? So I played Control.
Oh yeah.
And I finished that. I bought it, finished it, and then like 2 days after I finished it, it went up free on the PlayStation.
Yeah.
On PlayStation Plus with like the 4K 60 frames update. So I was fucking raging. So yeah, I've downloaded it. I haven't played it again yet, but I might go back to it and see how it looks. I've been playing Final Fantasy VII after your ringing endorsement from last week. And I'm enjoying it. I'm about 6 chapters in.
That's all right. I think it's only like 12. And then I know there's like 19, but 12 to 19 are just story heavy. You blast through it proper quick. So
yeah, I've only been playing it. I think I've only been playing it a few days. And I don't feel like I've been like putting in like mammoth sessions either. I've just it's very playable. It's very like you can just sit down, hammer a bit out, turn it off, come back to it later, and hammer another chapter out. I'm enjoying it.
It's not the story's like, I know the context of everything that's happening, so I think the story's a bit deeper when you understand the full game. But I think in the remake of that period, it's just an adventure game. It's just like a couple of misguided people accidentally like coming together to fight a greater force. It's like there's not really anything particular that you need to like keep an eye on and make sure you play it again quickly before you forget.
Well, I think what I'm thinking about doing is I'm going to finish this, and then I might get the original Final Fantasy VII for the Switch and play the full thing.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, because then I think you'd get what was coming, but you'd also understand, by the time you finish Remake, you'll start to understand like the deviations, because Remake Part 2 is probably going to deviate quite heavily. And I think to go into Remake Part 2, you should probably have an understanding of like the core story of Final Fantasy VII to probably get the most enjoyment out of it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like, I'm enjoying it. I really have no idea what's going on in the story besides what's sort of presented to me, and I feel like I'm sort of missing out a little bit. So I would like to. I'm gonna finish this first, and then I'd like to play the full thing and see what the entire story is, and sort of mentally prepare myself for when the follow-ups eventually drop.
Yeah, I won't go into it too much, but the one thing that I think if I was you, I'd be well confused about was like the sort of like little flashbacks and stuff, because they literally don't make any sense unless you know the entirety of the Final Fantasy VII story.
The flashbacks. You mean like
when he gets like a little migraine and then it's like flashes
and you'll
up.
see something, and what I kind of noticed is that he was remembering scenes that you'd already seen, but now there was like an extra bit of dialogue in it that you didn't hear the first time you saw it, which I find intriguing, and I'm really into that kind of style of non-linear sort of fractured story momentum. So
well, it's good that you it's good that you like that bit then, because I thought those bits would like have absolutely zero payoff.
Mate,
for
I like
person.
David Lynch films. Like anything that's weird and impossible to understand, I like.
I'm actually, when you play Final Fantasy VII, I'm actually really curious to talk to you about it, because I still, after probably playing it like 18 times in my life or something, I still don't really get some of it, because some of it's so vague and weird that it's like.
Yeah. I'm well into that kind of thing, so
it goes in proper weird ways, and it's almost like when you play the remake and you're sort of playing as Cloud, and you know what's happening. You're sort of a bit like, who are these people? Like, what's going on? It like there's a lot of fourth wall breaks and stuff like that, which are really good. But we'll talk about it when you get to it.
Yeah, I'll probably be a week or two. I'll probably be through it. We can probably have a proper chat about it on the podcast.
Yeah, what you been watching? You been watching Out Nice?
I watched It's a Sin.
Oh yeah,
have you seen that?
No, it's on my list. Everyone's been absolutely buzzing off it.
Very, very good. It's very, very good. I find a lot of like sort of British TV shows are shit.
I don't like the vibe of some of them. They have like a weird atmosphere, don't they?
Yeah. I mean, barring, like obvious things like I May Destroy You and stuff like that, which, and I was going to say Normal People, but that's Irish. But every now and again you get something that is just like undoubtedly brilliant, and It's a Sin is one of those. It's really poignant and sad and like also really joyful and celebratory of a kind of period of time around. Well, it's for people who don't know what it is. It's like a 5-part drama about the AIDS crisis in the 80s, and it follows a bunch of sort of like young people in London, mostly gay, obviously, sort of dealing with the outbreak of AIDS and the way that the government just sort of ignored it because they thought it only affected gay people and therefore didn't care.
Yeah.
And it's written by Russell T Davies, who obviously you can see has a deep emotional attachment to the story that he's writing, and whilst it obviously is like sort of involves a lot of tragedy because it's dealing with AIDS, which was like a rampant epidemic that killed thousands of people, it also is like a really affectionate look at like that sort of period of time and what like gay culture and stuff in London was like at the time. I really enjoyed it. And I'm also watching RuPaul's Drag Race UK week to week. We're having a bloody big gay bonanza in my house. Every week is a big old gay hootenanny. I fucking love. Have you ever watched RuPaul's Drag Race?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, the UK. I only like the UK one. I haven't
seen the UK one. I've only seen the US one.
See, I'm not really. I've watched some US RuPaul, and I'm not really that into the humor. Like, just the American humor for me doesn't really work, but like sort of dry, daft British humor.
What, is the UK one like that? Is it quite like?
Oh yeah, it's so funny. It's so funny, and it's like, yeah, it's really good. Watch it. Definitely watch the first series, and then we're only like halfway through. If that, on the second one. It's out like every Thursday, so get on that because the first series is brilliant. I'm really enjoying the second one as well.
Yeah, it's a really good show. I really like those kind of formats sometimes, just like a week by week, send someone home kind of thing.
Yeah.
I remember when I watched RuPaul with like an ex-girlfriend, it was so good. Absolutely,
I'm so invested in it. Like every week I'm like, is Lawrence Chaney out this week? Like, spoiler alert, he's not, because he's class.
Yeah. I also found it like weirdly sort of fascinating how much effort goes into it all as well. Like all the
It's
dressing.
a real art form.
Yeah, really.
That's something I didn't appreciate so much until I watched Drag Race. I was like this is art.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
it takes so much effort and so much creative thinking to like nail the outfits like properly. And like totally. I found myself like by the end of the episodes being like, you look class, or like someone coming out and looking a bit shit, and I'd be like, oh, sod off.
Yeah. Have you not heard? If you haven't seen the first series, you won't have heard the Frock Destroyers song.
No.
Oh, there's an episode in the first series where they do like a girl group song, and like they get split into teams and they each do it. And the song is class. It's so good. It's on Spotify. I'll send you the song. Definitely go and watch go and watch the first series. It's all on iPlayer, and like that episode especially.
do.
They do another episode in the first series as well, where they do like a Mrs. Brown's Boys style sort of like camp sitcom.
Really?
But it's all drag queens. It's
Yeah,
so good, man.
That is good.
So yeah,
I'm excited for that. I haven't watched the US one in a couple of years, so might as well get back into it from familiar territory.
I think it's only like 8 to 10 episodes a series for the UK one. I don't know if the American one's longer because I've never gotten through a full series of the American one. But yeah, it's all on iPlayer. Give it a deeks.
I will. I bloody will.
Well, that was this week, Steve. I'm gonna keep hammering that and Ho Mama every week until eventually it becomes a thing. So yeah, that's it for this week. Thank you to everyone who's listened.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, we'll be sending you a free bun in the post. Everybody gets a bun for listening to the podcast.
For listening. Yeah, we do proper know who listens, to be fair.
Yeah, so once you've listened, just keep an eye on your letterbox and you'll find your bun in the post. You can follow the podcast on Twitter and Instagram at @buttonchopspod. And if you've enjoyed any of our dumb patter, then please leave a review, as it helps us out massively. And you can drop us a line or DM us on social media, email us at buttonchopspodcast@gmail.com. I don't know why it came out like that. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at BeezusForFoon, and I also have a YouTube channel called Little Davey Reviews Things. I'm not going to explain it. If you go and check it out, you'll see what it is. Anything you want to add?
No, my Instagram and Twitter is Clever Woot, and I'm at home every week, so that's it.
As are we all.
I have no YouTube channel called Little Davey Reviews, but everyone should definitely go check it out. Chris won't say it, but he did a really good Last of Us musical, so you should all go have a look at that.
I wrote a song about Last of Us Part 2.
The effort was far outweighs the amount of views it's got.
No, it's disappointing, but I'll get there. I'll get there.
It's so good.
Right. Thanks, mate. Wax a belter.
Yeah.
See you all next week.
See ya. Ta-ra.
Bye.
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 Bye.